Hey guys, welcome back to Man Candy Creations. I've got a brand new project that I originally was not planning on filming, but recently a well-known fabricator in Las Vegas who has a YouTube channel of his own just started building a Mighty Max himself, and that gave me just enough motivation to want to share my own. It's a Mitsubishi Mighty Max. I am self-proclaimed Mighty Max guy. The Mighty Max was the first thing that I ever owned. It was my first car. It was a hand-me-down from my mother, and I didn't want it. Oh man, I hated it. But my brother got me a mini truck and magazine. I think this was in 1998, and that caused me to fall in love with this truck, and I've been in love with the Mighty Max ever since. I've had 3, and I've helped build several more. The truck I'm working on now is my wife's 1987 Mitsubishi Mighty Max. This is a truck that I bought several years ago that was actually already bagged, but otherwise was bone stock. A few years later, my brother and I surprised my wife by painting it for her. We shaved the door handles, the tailgate, the rivets in the bumper, electric door handles, bucket seats. The thing's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I've since been referring to it as a poop M&M because under the hood is absolute dog shit. It's the original 4-cylinder carbureted motor that smokes like crazy and has a miserable time even getting up to 65 miles per hour. I've decided that it's finally time to finish this truck properly. This is a very big project, and I've decided that it's not going to fit in one video. So I am going to make this my first series. Welcome, my friends, to episode number 1. Ooh.
Introducing the 1998 Mitsubishi Eclipse. Very rare. I think there's only one of these. So what does the Mitsubishi Eclipse have to do with a Mighty Max? Pop the hood.
Wait, what? Are you kidding me? There's no engine in it? There's a whole reason for buying this thing. Just kidding. It's right here. 4G63T, no shit. It's one of the most popular motors in the world, I think. That probably makes me sound like an idiot, especially if it's not. Let's just say that a lot of people like it then. How's that? A lot of people think it's bulletproof, it's fast. They put it in the Mitsubishi Eclipse, the Eagle Talon, of course, the Evo. Anybody like the Evo? Mitsubishi Evolution? Yeah? No? All right. And the Mitsubishi Mighty Max. Hey, go figure. They never put the 4G63T in the Mighty Max. However, the block, from my understanding, is exactly the same, which means it should be, as far as mounting it goes anyways, nearly a direct bolt-in with some updates to the intake and coolant and stuff like that. This project is gonna gain me some haters. Seems every time you have a project that requires another car to die, usually a perfectly good car, man, people don't like that. They get so mad. Ooh. When I first started Project D350, I widened the entire truck. I wanted to put a V8 in it, and the factory D50 is just way too thin to handle a GM 350. So I needed to cut the whole truck in half and widen it, and when I cut it in half, oh, the comments, man, go back and look. I filmed it on a potato like in 2006, 2007. It was insane, man. People didn't like it. Turned out badass, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, this time I am destroying a perfectly good Mitsubishi Eclipse. All in all, it's a pretty good car,
but I assure you, whether you agree with the project or not, it is going to be so much better. Oh my gosh, it is going in the most gorgeous truck. My opinion, of course. So, what's going to gain me the most haters? So, I stole the engine and transmission. The transmission is automatic. I'm not going to be using that, but that's alright. I took it out anyways. I took out the engine harness, the body harness, the fuse boxes, the tilt steering column with the wiper, blinker, and headlight switches, and the ignition. The radiator, I took the condenser, I took the AC assembly, the gauge cluster, though I don't think I'm going to use that, the power steering fluid circuit, and the fuel tank with the fuel sender and the fuel pump. The only thing I didn't take, I think, was the brakes. And the brakes are going to be the first thing I start with. There she is, the Pinklet, 1987 Mitsubishi Mighty Max with the factory carbureted 4-cylinder. Custom paint, it's a little dusty. Carburetor started leaking fuel and I wouldn't let my wife drive it, so it's been sitting in this dungeon ever since. Shaved door handles. The suspension was done when I got it. They did a pretty good job. I put shocks on it. I'm going to redo the whole thing. Shaved tailgate and roll pan. And drum brakes in the rear. I'll be completely rebuilding the interior with a custom dash and recovering the seats. Alright guys, the Mighty Max is completely torn apart. I'm ready to start construction, and one of the first things that I'm going to do is the front 5-lug conversion with a brake upgrade. The funny thing is brakes are the last thing that I need. But what I do need right now is to know if the new wheels that I'm going to put on are going to fit under the fenders. In order to do that, I need to change the lug pattern. I'm going to show 2 different ways of doing it. One I think will be the most helpful to the most people, which is using the factory calipers and factory rotors, and then my way, which is a Lexus rotor upgrade with Camaro calipers. The first way is extremely easy. If you don't already know how to do the 5-lug conversion, you are going to be amazed at how simple it is. We're just going to pop off the cap, remove the cotter pin, remove the nut. I will not be using these calipers or these beat up brake lines, so if you are keeping the calipers, don't do this. There's 2 bolts on the back of the caliper, and your caliper should just come off. Once the brake caliper is off and the nut's off, you can just remove the entire hub and rotor assembly. Now this is the assembly that you're going to want to get from a pre-95 Toyota pickup. It's before they started calling them Tacomas. The only difference, obviously, is going to have 5 lugs on it. This is where my project differs from the factory brake hub conversion. This is a Toyota hub, but notice I don't have the rotor on the back because I will not be using the Toyota rotors. If you are, it's as simple as sliding on the Mighty Max spindle and putting on the nut. As far as the hub conversion goes, you're done. I recommend looking up some bearing packing videos so you know exactly how to prep these bearings before installing them. Once you do, tighten this nut down very tight. That's going to seat the conical bearings. Once it's very tight, loosen it back up a little bit and then tighten it up just a little bit. It just needs to be snug and the hole for the cotter pin to line up, and you're good to go. If you tighten it too much, you're going to burn up the bearings and you're going to have a bad time. I know there's a lot of bearing packing videos on YouTube, so go check one of those out. If you're going to be doing the factory brakes, you will be using the Mighty Max caliper and that Toyota hub. As far as the hub and the brake rotor goes, you're done. All that's left is to bolt up the caliper, and that's the only thing that's going to give you a little issue. If you put the caliper on and put the bolts in and tighten them up, you'll see that the rotor is going to drag on one side of the caliper. all you're going to need to do is determine about how much it needs to move out and find some washers of that thickness and put the washers between the caliper and the knuckle. Tighten it up and you should be good. That is the entire hub conversion on the front of a Mighty Max.
All right, now let's add a few inches of awesome. Now this brake upgrade I did several years ago, so all the work is already done for me. But I'll walk you through it in case you want to do the same thing. This is a 13-inch rotor from a 2010 Lexus GS F-Sport. It has the same bolt pattern as the Toyota hub. The problem is, the Toyota hub is slightly larger than the opening in the back of the rotor. So I brought the hubs to a machine shop and I had them machine the outer edge just enough to fit inside the rotor. Now remember, the rotors were bolted to the back of the hub on the Toyota and the Mighty Max. I'm going from that design to a floating rotor style. Like most modern vehicles, the rotor bolts to the front of the hub, sandwiched between the wheel and the hub. On the Toyota hub, the center of the hub is cast and uneven. So I also had the machine shop even out that center section. Once they did that, we were able to take a measurement from the center of the hub and open up the center hole in the Lexus rotor to match. Now the Lexus rotor fits on and is hub-centric with the center of the hub. What I had to do next was swap out the lugs with longer ones. Since the rotor bolted to the back of the hub on the Toyota and now the rotor is on the front, I need enough threads to not only go through the wheel, but also through the rotor and still give us enough threads to tighten the wheel down safely. Now that the rotor was on, I went to the junkyard and found a 1998 Chevy Camaro with 2-piston calipers. The Chevy Camaro rotors were just a little bit smaller and I figured I could make these calipers work. When I put the caliper on the rotor, I was able to look in the back and see that the mounting surface for the caliper was about a ½ inch away from the factory knuckle. Ironically, the holes in the caliper were almost the same, but I still needed to move the caliper outwards, so I had to make a bracket. The bracket I made was a ½ inch thick to make up for the ½ inch gap that I saw, and also push the caliper out about 1.5 inches further so it wouldn't contact the outside of the rotor. If you're interested in doing this brake upgrade, let me know in the comments. I'll either try to make you some templates so that you can make your own adapter, or if money's not a problem, I can make some for you. Once you have the adapter, you can just bolt on the caliper. Now that everything's together, I can finally try on the 5-lug 20-inch wheels. The reason I did this brake upgrade originally was I was putting a V8 in my truck and I thought it was going to need more than 10-inch rotors. The reason I'm doing the brake upgrade now, other than the fact that I already have the parts, is something entirely different. These are the 20-inch STR wheels that we'll be putting on the truck. Don't freak out, they're not going to stay this color. These wheels are currently on my Mustang, and look how ridiculous the Mustang rotors look behind a 20-inch wheel. The Mustang rotors are 1 inch bigger than the Toyota and the Mighty Max rotors. So my sole purpose in putting my brake upgrade on this Mighty Max is so they don't look silly. When Vise came out with their CV3R wheel, I fell in love immediately. But I've never been the type to spend more than $2,000 on wheels and tires. So when STR came out with a set of wheels that looked almost exactly the same, but for less, needless to say, I was really excited. What's better is a few years ago, while at the junkyard, I found a set of those STR wheels for sale for 300 bucks. The downside was they were 2 different colors. 2 white wheels, 2 black wheels. I brought them home, put them on my Mustang, and plasta-dipped them burnt copper. When the truck's done, I'll be taking the wheels down to Snail Performance and having them powder-coated silver. I'm not much of a chrome guy, and I think the silver will go nicely with the stripe and the paint. Look at those brakes. It's 1,000,000 times better. I'm gonna grab the fender and put it on, see how the wheels fit. The wheel is bolted on and jacked up a little bit, and today I learned that the Mighty Max is getting custom control arms. The wheel needs to pull in about 1 inch, and there is no other option. Just in time for the end of this episode, I just got a box from STM Tuned full of 4G63 engine parts. We're going to rebuild a motor.